Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us to the first cloud-native AppSec community SDLChat. This is the first in the series of SDLChats where we converse with experts from the field about specific application security topics. The cloud-native AppSec community is sponsored by Apiiro, so thank you for the sponsorship. And by that, we are going to discuss today secrets in code and remediation of it. For starters, I'm going to be moderating the conversation. My name is Moshe Zioni, VP of Security Research at Apiiro, and I'm going to hand over for the introductions for each one of the participants in a sec, just to explain more about what is secrets in code and what is the purpose of the conversation. So secrets in code in general is the term that is used to describe tokens or passwords or any kind of a string that is inserted in code by usually developers. And by that, those kind of tokens can be impactful. For passwords, it's pretty straightforward. It can be used as a password for a system, but also a token can be an API token that will give you access and permissions to use those kind of APIs. The secrets in code issue have been exponentially growing over the years, especially as SaaS SaaS servers and services have been prevalent within systems and open source dependencies as well. And by that, you will see more and more of those secrets crippling into our code bases. Once those in, an attacker can find those secrets and abuse that for their own use. And we also found several cases over the years of those abuses turning over into a devastating attacks against companies throughout the world, and publications have published that more than once over the past couple of months even. So again, thank you for joining us. And by that, I'm going to hand over the microphone to each one of the participants. And we'll start with you, Henry.
Thank you. So I'm Henry McNeil. I am a product security engineer at iHerb. And I am newer to the cybersecurity space, where I have worked as a software engineer for about a decade before I joined the dark side. I am really passionate about building secure applications, cryptography, quantum computing, and board games. And I live in Omaha, Nebraska with my wife and our corgi, Jiggles.
Thank you very much. Larisa.
Hi, my name is Larisa Kirkland. I've been working in AppSec for about 8 years. I did not start my career in AppSec. I started in cybersecurity related field. Now I work in Chegg as an application security engineer. I did work previously in a company that does business-to-business software. So I have both spectrums, business-to-business and business-to-consumer. I currently live in Virginia with my family. And I actually do like outdoor stuff a lot more. My passion within AppSec is to try to educate as many people as possible and empower them to do the right choices in our field.
Thank you. Frank.
Yes, my name is Frank Catucci. I'm currently the head of application and product security for DataRobot. DataRobot is an artificial intelligence machine learning company that is looking to basically expand AI into every company and usage. Most of my areas of expertise are traditionally application security and product security. I live in South Carolina and look forward to having this discussion on secrets management and carrying the conversation into any other application security topics.
And now that you all know our experts, we'll start with the discussion itself. We pre-prepared several leading questions to our participants, but of course the conversation itself can go astray from the normal lines of investigation to preferred way of presenting things. With that, we'll start with the first question. It is about secrets identification. So once a secret has been identified, what kind of actions are you doing within your organizations in order to prioritize on what to go first at from those secrets. Those lists can go on and on for very long, so you need to prioritize that.
I can jump in on that one first. I think with any security or cybersecurity type of individual trying to kind of lead the mission for the company, the first thing that we need to do is understand your vertical and understand your specific risks. So if I'm someone from, perhaps e-commerce, and a lot of what I'm trying to do is to protect against bot abuse or things of that nature for fraud and those type of things, then looking at where that secret is coming from and what the actual impact and risk to the business is and what you're looking to defend against in a prioritized fashion usually would probably be where to start on trying to judge just how important that particular finding is. Here, we find a lot of things, like we maintain community repos where we have software that's community-based. Finding a secret in a community repo may not be as impactful as finding a secret in a production repo where that secret can be used for much different type of attack or type of adversarial type of behavior. So I think what we do here is we really look to try to understand context and the context of the impact of that finding. And then we prioritize from there. Now, we're hoping that we don't have numerous secret leakage at the same time, that we are forced to pick one to remediate over the other. But the truth is that it does occur at some certain circumstances, and we really need to judge the impact, make sure that we have the kind of automation and education going forward to state, this is the problem, this is how we found it, this is how we're going to fix it, and this is probably a lesson learned or something that we can use in the future. But the prioritization for us really carries on the impact and knowing exactly where where the crown jewels lie and what are the primary objectives of that protection that you're looking to mitigate within the company. That's currently how we run our secrets discovery type of remediation and prioritization for remediation. But obviously your results may vary depending on your vertical or where exactly the secret is found and the impact on the business.
You mentioned several times about the context of impact. Can you give us an example of what kind of context are you looking for?
Yeah, so again, we have a fair amount of community repositories where there might be specific things that we share, where if someone contributes and puts in a credential to perhaps let's say a credential or a secret to a database that's used for one limiting function of an open source or community-based tool or repository, that impact is much less than if we release a secret in our production code that lets, let's say, unsecure or inappropriate level of access to any other assets that are on a production scale that may even cross barriers for clients and sensitive data, then that's going to be far more a priority for us than something that is very limited in scope or impact. And the same would be if I was a e-commerce type of vendor and I was looking to stop bot abuse via my mobile app per se, and then there's a secret divulged in the decompiling of the mobile app that allows pretty much unfettered access to the back end. Especially in abuse or misuse scenario, that's going to be largely more impactful than a secret that has a very limited blast radius or something of that nature. And that's how we would prioritize that. So it's the real world impact to the business, really, and trying to put that risk into context.
And that makes total sense. Anyone else want to pitch in about their own practices within the organization?
Yeah, I think to kind of echo a couple of the themes from what Frank said, I think that the prioritization for me is about exposure. Is this something that would, say, only be in a back-end protected all behind all the firewalls and VPCs and everything, only deployed on internal cloud sort of secret, or is this something that we're basically just giving you for free? This is in our mobile application, in JavaScript, in a desktop application. And then beyond that level of just exposure that you have, also prioritizing based on, is this something for a very small service? This only lets you talk to one microservice in the back end. Or is this a AWS admin level key that we're packaging in something? And from there, it's pretty easy to prioritize. But something that I would be kind of curious to hear from the others on is, how do you maybe know, as an AppSec person overseeing a whole organization with so many different services, how do you get that context around some of the secrets when you find them?
I can jump into that. The way we do a lot of things when we're trying to figure it out, we don't consider the AppSec team as just an individual team trying to solve a problem. We are here to support, and we are here to help and cooperate with our engineering teams. So a lot of times when we maybe don't have the answer, it will take us too long to dig. That's when definitely try to engage all the parties responsible. And with that, it also helps us a lot to try to identify what the exploitability of that secret is. So, okay, we figured out this secret was just a developer secret. Somebody put, in our opinion, that should be just a small impact. But we want to make sure that that key wasn't reused, that that wasn't actually a copy from production, and it can do a lot more damage than we think.
Yeah, the only thing I have to add to that is being able to have some type of tooling with observability. So knowing that you have this key or this piece of code where this key or secret was identified, and then being able to easily and quickly locate that library or that piece of code where that secret is contained, and then be able to narrow down the function from there. So the visibility is extremely important, proper inventory of your code bases and those type of things. But yeah, there's going to be times where you have to reach out, and that's an excellent point.
That also leads to the next topic for us, is about the early detection is, of course, the best to have. Once we have this kind of early detection, no impact is being done, unless we count education as something that we need to put an effort in. But what other capabilities or tooling that you are using that will minimize the attacker's impact? Considering that the attacker needs to spend much less time in order to, from before, in order to spot the secret and then to abuse it, contrary to maybe vulnerabilities and something a bit more sophisticated on the curve. So what are your actions to do that you make day to day in terms of minimizing this kind of impact?
Sure, I can take that one first. So I think that in order to minimize the impact, you want to make sure that all of your credentials are properly scoped, so that you aren't just using, say, admin grant star to star in your cloud provider credentials when you only really need access to, say, one S3 bucket. Beyond making sure that things are properly scoped, though, I think that making sure that they are easy to rotate and can be automatically rotated is huge. You really don't want to be in that kind of circumstance where you know that your key is exposed and it's compromised, and now you have to wait 6 weeks for your next production release to be bundled up to actually rotate that key. That's kind of a nightmare scenario for any of us in cybersecurity. Hopefully we're all moving towards those agile development cycles where you can rapidly release changes. But even so, if you have, say, a secret that's shared across a number of microservices, and now you need to coordinate a release across many different services without taking downtime, that can just be a mess to try and rotate a secret in that way. So making use of anything that you can do to kind of automatically streamline that process as much as possible, I think also really helps us if those do become compromised.
Yeah, the idea of rotation is, of course, very important and interesting to note that there are, of course, different approaches to those kind of rotations and how to keep track of those secrets as well. Anyone else wants to pinch in on the impact size and minimizing it?
No, I just wanted to emphasize one point that he made that I think is pretty important, and that's more or less the principle of least privilege. To apply the same principle that we apply with our users to apply to our tokens, apply to our APIs access. You really don't need admin if you're just looking for one small component, just like Henry said.
Yeah, and the only thing I can add there is what we find a lot is the secure design of a lot of these services that you may be running. Either traditionally would not have the various roles and things like least access and built into them, right? You'd get one or two roles for like read and admin. So the secure design process that you're walking through as part of your AppSec program as a whole, to have security involved in the design or working with developers on a secure design really allows that least privilege to occur. And I know that with a lot of our legacy stuff, we're always having to like reiterate the type of that secure design as we go forward and make sure that the best practices are followed on the new products, right? So that's another piece that I would just add on to that seems to help us with the secrets management problem, and that's that secure design piece.
Yeah, sounds like we all have the same problems, but we are approaching it a bit differently, or at least trying to make everyone sane with this kind of conundrum that we have on our hands in terms of too many secrets to too many people with least privilege principle. It's pretty hard, but something that is, of course, a target and vision for everyone. From that, I would jump to the actual practicalities within organizations. I find it many times to be different from organization to organization is in terms of responsibility. How do you define responsibilities around secret detection and remediation in your organizations?
So I'll take a first run at that. As I said at the beginning, I'm a big advocate about educating people and empowering them and being the best they can. And we know that nobody wants to do a mistake or nobody wants to write bad code. So in terms of responsibility, I believe it's very important to share that responsibility among everybody. So to early educate, try to incorporate secret detection and remediation within your normal SDLC process. So have stages where you can catch an error early on, or you can educate people before even writing, having standards of if you do have to handle secrets, this is our practice within our company. This is the recommended way. If you don't think that fits your development, or you think it's a little bit too complicated, that's where I think AppSec team will come in and help. A lot of times when I think of AppSec teams, I think of us as a support team to empower the people. We're not there to judge, and we're not there to just say, oh, you did this wrong. We are here to tell you, okay, let's help you get this better. Let's help you do this. And this is also for responsibility, I think. Detection and automatic tools are there to help in that one-off scenario where somebody is making a mistake or didn't realize that's the problem. And again, just early detection on things. It's amazing.
I couldn't stand behind those statements any stronger. I'm a huge advocate for that. I have a saying that I've been using for 20 years, and that's like training trumps tools. Both are important. Tool has its place. That open level of communication and forging those relationships with developers and champions and things of that nature throughout your development resources is key. I think that the point that was just made just needs to be piled upon, because that was probably the most relevant kind of thing that echoes deep with me as we go forward here, and the relationships that we try to forge, and that training and education that goes along with that. So that was, I mean, that I'm 100% just a backup to what was just said there. So thank you for that.
Same.
Great. Wow, that was a very complete answer, Larisa. And what kind of, would you say, are the parts in the organization that are active within this kind of responsibilities? Is it DevOps? Is it application security? Are the developers themselves are somewhat responsible to that, or holding responsibility to some extent?
I think it's a team effort. You start with developers. They'll be the ones that will see the code. Yes, you can't rely on code reviews for finding secrets. That's where the tools we have. But that's why everybody else, it's like another gate of check to try to get the perfect code out there. Although there's no such thing as perfect code. They'll have hidden functionalities.
Yeah, to exactly what Larisa said, I think that relationship starts between the AppSec experts and developers and the cross-pollination of those teams. So I have folks on my team who are former software engineers and developers, right? Henry is sitting over there. He's a former developer. He gets it. And then we have folks that are on our DevOps team that might have had some security experience in the past, or hopefully if you can get a developer with some security experience, that's a little bit tougher. But working and cross-pollinating those relationships is key. And Henry might have a unique perspective. I mean, you were a software engineer for over 10 years, I believe. So, there might be something that, rings truer for you personally.
Yeah, I think that I've seen many teams become involved in secrets rotation efforts. Oftentimes you'll maybe have DevOps who owns your cloud infrastructure and they need to put a secret into AWS Secrets Manager. And then you'll have some business stakeholder though who actually owns the tool that secret is coming from, and they need to be in charge of rotation. And your engineering team needs to be in charge of actually implementing in the code your calls out to AWS or whatever your secrets solution of choice is. And you'll have the security team, oftentimes telling everybody get this done faster. But just, bringing the awareness and coordinating those teams often. You're almost, like Larisa said, almost more in that like support role sometimes as a security professional, herding cats sometimes and getting all the groups to work together for it.
Yeah, let's not forget the legal team that will tell you, like, hey, this contract says.
Good point.
Right. So converting all of those topics together, like the identification, impact, and responsibility aspects of it, I would welcome you to share your preferred practice around secret remediation in terms of response to a secret incident.
Anyone else? I'll jump in. So there's two things that we do. And again, and not to say that it's in a perfect scenario, but it's just what we found that kind of works best. One is making sure that there is a formal and documented and understood incident response plan. In other words, if there is a security incident or a secret published that is publicly accessible, making sure that there's a process in place that where everyone is properly trained to make sure that the triage, the locking down of the issue, the isolation of the issue, and the remediation of the issue occurs. Making sure there's an incident commander properly like, on-call resources, those type of things. Because depending on the significance or the sensitivity of the secret exposure, it may or may not require an all hands type of 3 a.m. effort versus something that it functions more in an automated fashion. So one thing for us is that the automation of that, we have a lot of Slack hooks, things like that. We have, cell phone paging type of remediation, communications that are set up. So it's first, it's making sure that the systems are there, making sure that people are properly trained on those systems, and then really understanding the context. Again, like that first question that was asked around that sensitivity or that blast radius, right? So what does this mean for us as a business, depending on where it is, how it's going to be handled, the priority, who's responsible, et cetera. And having all of those things done before this occurs, or as part of the normal kind of get better process, I suppose, would be key for us in understanding that, making sure that there's right representation on those groups. So someone who understands the scope and severity, and not just someone who's, the on-call person that's making a decision that may not have that exact context. So just making sure that the proper kind of training and preparation, and running through those in a dry run process as well. So that would be what works for us. We have a lot of automation with Jira, with Slack, et cetera, but there's also those more kind of contextual processes that we have that require that training and that formability to be able to address those situations in more of an incident handling manner.
Yeah, I definitely want to emphasize what Frank said. Having a run book ahead of time and a proper process in place of how are you going to handle when a secret gets released or discovered in the wild, making sure that all the people are on board and understand how to react to it and isolate it as quick as possible. I think that's very important. And a lot of times I wouldn't necessarily take secret remediation separate from discovering a 0-day or having a log4j issue in the middle of Christmas, where people know how to react. You can do a quick impact listing, and you can try to isolate as much as possible your damage.
I think also it's going to be very situational for your company and the type of secrets you're dealing with. At what point you consider a secret to be compromised, because you might take the approach that it's compromised when it is out in the wild. And you might also take the approach that it's compromised as soon as a human lays eyes on it. And if you have a secret committed to source code, that's almost the same level of incident as a secret that's out in the wild. But again, as the other two said, you definitely need to have that clear process, clear instant handling, response plan, whatever you're doing, whatever your level of severity is for a secret being committed.
Wow, so I hear that there is some commonality between all of you, is that all hands on deck. We have an education program with that. We are doing dry runs, which can be a bit extensive, of course, but something very, very important to do. That once something is a positive alert, a true positive alert, you'll know how to handle that and not just think that the book will cover that. So I would like to thank you all for the extensive panel and for the experts' answers. It was amazing to hear you all. I think that that all of you together bring a lot of value to this kind of conversations, and I hope that from that the listeners here have gained value from all of you. I know that I have personally. It was very, very interesting and enriching to hear you all. And I would like to thank you personally for participating voluntarily on this call. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.